Now I'm working in NiCE systems as an AI engineer, and it's a lot of client facing AI, especially implementation as well within their own platforms. Other than that, I used to work in Kipanga, which is as an AI engineer as well, and automation engineer, so a lot of developer work. Before that, I did study in data science, and I did quite a bit of work in data science and stuff. And yeah, I guess it's just essentially when I got the opportunity to transition to AI, I just thought it's a cool thing and why not? And I've been just loving the whole industry, loving the tech, loving the whole thing so far, and I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
Awesome. Well, maybe we can kick it off. I'm really curious to know what is the most impactful AI-driven project that you've worked on so far, would you say?
When it comes to impact, I guess one that comes to mind is it's an automation that I created for this project management company. And so before this, a lot of these managers, they were burning bunch of hours, like a huge chunk of their hours every single week on a few things, such as, manually writing status reports or maybe turning meeting minutes into like recordings into proper minutes and summaries and analysis and stuff. And so it's the overhead of the role essentially, because you want them to manage sort of like kind of like spearhead, I guess, or just like guide the project rather than just writing reports down and looking at recordings and transcripts. And essentially I built a system that took these sort of transcripts, this project data, previous reports, and all these kinds of things in order to automatically generate reports, and to automatically generate minutes or analysis, and just a lot of these data that eventually all they had to do was I guess review and tweak it rather than write it from scratch. And the effect was quite significant because it's something quite simple, up to 100 of, I think, yeah, up to 100 of people were using it daily, which is quite a lot. I was quite surprised. And it ended up, saving, I guess, hundreds of hours just, or even maybe 1,000 across like these 100 people throughout the whole month. It's quite a lot of salary hours, you could say.
Because this was pre-Claude code, pre-Codex. So it was
Yes, correct.
using N8N or something like that?
Okay, the one I created, it was all full back-end software development. That's why I think I highlighted it. It was all like full server
You custom
back-end.
built the whole thing.
Yes, I did. So I
Whoa.
custom built the whole thing. So it was an entire like it's an entire, I guess it eventually became like a cloud app that just ran on a backend server on Azure. But yes,
Nice.
so the whole thing was run on a specific backend. So
That's
it
pretty
was
cool.
yeah, it was like the thing is it was before NetN and all of these kinds of tools were pretty big, because I remember all of these orchestration tools, or even when it started becoming quite fancy, it was earlier this year and late last year. And this was a project that I did like early last year. So it was very like new in the AI. Like Claude Code wasn't cool. Like people were using Claude. It was OpenAI and it was like GPT-3. It's like it was a
Yeah.
very new thing, and people were still getting used to LLMs. That's why I think I highlighted the idea that it was a eureka moment for everybody, because it's sort of like a first step in the AI. I guess the use cases AI can have on businesses, and that's why it meant a lot to me. So I guess that context probably matters quite a lot now. But I guess yeah, if you'd like to go a little bit more, a little bit deeper in the technical side, I think the cool thing is that this was also my first experience with a more agentic loop. So I guess maybe some people would be quite familiar with that. But essentially what it is that it's not a simple one API call based on a very long prompt. It's like it's multiple calls along the step where the model gets to sort of like go around, think through it. So let's say the first step is just let's just gather context, and then it sends it via API, and then it understands the intention, it understands sort of like what this meeting is about maybe, and then the next step would be connecting it with well, let's say with that ingested data, and you get it back, and then you get sort of like a structured data, and then that structured data gets compared against, let's say, context at this time, and so all the context, and so it's step by step calls. It's not just like one massive call. So oftentimes I think it feels like, oh, like AI is pretty cool. We can just make like one massive call, 2,000 words, every single context. It'll just give us like the best result. And maybe as LLMs get better and better, I'm sure one day we'll reach that point, but it's a lot better when you sort of specify what each model wants to do. That way, first of all, you get to use smaller models, which in a scalable kind of like context, you do save a little bit more money. You don't you save a lot more money because you're not using models that have higher thinking ceilings and stuff. Essentially, you're sort of just giving it a task, and then essentially in every single point, it just has a task, and then as it gets the quality of the data gets better and better, and it has checks here, checks there, eventually into the final like report generation. Like even at the end, it's like for instance, like in this loop, I wouldn't, when you're creating an AI system, I wouldn't, let's say, put the thinking process of the AI where it gives me back what it thinks and the analysis or maybe the summarization with the same step where I would ask the AI to basically format the data into the specific report structure I'd like. So these kinds of things are usually things you want to separate. First of all, it gives you a clear flow. So for example, when you're debugging, or let's say when you want to see what breaks eventually within the steps, you're not confused because you're not sort of bunching everything into one random huge AI call, but it's multiple short tasks within the entire loop that structures it slowly and eventually formats it within with different tools and these kinds of things. And so it's a whole process where you're essentially working in it and making it as if it's multiple agents working together to create one whole system rather than just one big guy doing everything. And those kinds of like that again, that comes back to the architectural decisions again. It's like it's things that you don't necessarily think about usually, but yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And what would you say, because that's really clear now. And how have things shifted in like the last year? Because it's been a year and a half since that project. I'm also curious, by the way, not just the technical component, but how do you think through it from a business lens? Because what I've been noticing is that a lot of problems people want to solve with AI can actually be solved without AI.
Well, that's actually a really good question. One of the things that I noticed as I work with many clients and various projects is the funny thing is people say that they want AI, but oftentimes what people want is automation. So oftentimes it's like, oh, you have a client come to me and, maybe it makes sense because they're non-technical. It's like AI automation. All they know is that AI is going to be able to do things for them. It's like, and what that means usually, like, you have a guy come up to you and they're like, oh, well, I have this thing where I have like a couple of dudes manually inputting something from an Excel into our CRM, which eventually gets pushed into like Zero, for invoicing, blah, 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 or like following up with, let's say, our clients for invoices to pay and blah, blah, blah. But, when you hear that and you're like, that's pretty much it. So you're telling me you want a system that moves things from across different platforms. That's like, a system that has API calls with structured data. And that's, a lot of that is software. That's like, well, yeah, technically it's software. It's system design as automation rather than AI. That's why these are things that, let's say, Zapier like allowed you to do. It's like it's things that you could do with end-to-end. It's things that you could do with, let's say, a small server on AWS or Azure that just triggers on a schedule, for example, or whenever, let's say, data gets added, and then it just does like a quick API call, moves it here, boom, 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 done. It's like, it's no AI call. You don't need any open AI call. That you don't need any thinking model. Like, for sure, I think having the AI itself is quite nice. For example, if you're moving data that's a bit more complex, I think AI would be quite nice to summarize things. For example, let's say if you're moving customer ticket requests, then, well, a tiny AI step would be quite nice. For example, to summarize a 3-paragraph like customer request into like a very simple sentence that's very comprehensive that a technical support team would understand. Like, rather than having the customer's full like 3-paragraph randomly, badly worded, I guess, like request. That's a nice thing to have, but it's not necessary. It's like what most people end up wanting is actually automation, and that's one thing that's, I think, really important to see. It's like, in your business, in your workflow, in your day-to-day, do you actually need AI? Of course, if you're using it for research, if you're using it for summarizing, AI is wonderful. It's amazing. I mean, I think everybody is using it now. Like, everybody has a Claude subscription at this point, or a free GPT one, and so you're using it. But it's noticing, especially when you're spending money for it, are you actually need AI, or do you just need automation? Because oftentimes, like, you slap on an AI label on a software or something, or on a not AI necessary system, and you're gonna jack up the price. Like, companies are gonna charge you for more because it's AI first, or it's an AI service. But all you actually needed is just a traditional software solution. And then I think the next step, it's like you're asking how things change as how did things change as I choose my technology. I would say oftentimes it's been pretty interesting because even non-technical people, I think, generally speaking now, they've gotten way more familiar with a lot of the AI tools. For example, Claude Cowork, or maybe OpenAI, and just all these kinds of things. And on top of that, most people already know what NetN is. And so oftentimes I notice that some people say like, oh, we have NetN, so we're going to use that. And so oftentimes when it comes to choosing these orchestration platforms, I would say it's first of all seeing if they already have, maybe a subscription or a solution based on these platforms, because you don't want to just expand their whole like tech stack unnecessarily. If they already have, let's say, a cloud enterprise solution plan with and you don't really want to like introduce another one and add costs for them. So if they already have and we would use and if they have make, we just make. But the thing is, there are also specific constraints. So for instance, there are quite a few platforms across there which are very powerful. For example, let's just go with the simplest one. Make.com is the simplest one. But because it's the simplest one, it also has the highest amount of constraints. So if you're just, let's say, moving Google Sheet information data and maybe like logging in numbers into Twilio or sending an SMS, sure, like that's pretty easy to make with make.com, and it's pretty simple. The UI is quite pretty, it's very nice, and if you're just hitting like tiny API calls or transferring data, very simple, make.com is good. But suddenly, when you start needing custom code, when you start needing something more complicated, more personal to the solution, it's like suddenly Make becomes a huge limitation. It's like, I realize as I use it, it's like, oh, I can't really just set up code nodes that go into another code node and add like scripts and stuff like. But with NNN, for example, or Pipedream, I get to do that. And so a lot of other than let's say the simplicity or the complexity of a specific orchestration platform, I think the second step would be seeing if they already have it. And if they already have it, or if they don't have it, and they're like, oh, whatever it is, then the third step, I would say, is just up to preference. I think specific developers have, preferences. Maybe someone's more well versed in it, or maybe you prefer having it more custom, so you kind of like it. And Pipedream, for example, Pipedream is a less popular orchestration platform, which is pretty cool because every single code block that you put, like basically it's like a workflow, but you can put like code. So it's like creating a backend system without having to wire things together, and that's what makes like Pipedream so impressive and so cool. But it's not as popular, and it's very like developer first, I would say. I think. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, I've had actually one project where I've had to choose a specific platform because, okay, I think most of these platforms, they generally have connectors or API connections to most of the very common, let's say, software solution or SaaS or whatever service that's on the web. It's like, oh, if you want to connect to Salesforce, like all of these platforms have API connections to Salesforce. Or if you want OpenAI, they have OpenAI for sure. It's like, but if you have a very tiny specific CRM, or maybe you have like this very tiny like random software that's made from like a European company that's only like 5 clients, and so it's a very small solution that you actually use in your very personal thing, and it's not on one platform but it's on the other. So, that could be a thing that makes, for example, a developer would end up deciding one of them that already has the connection rather than sticking with one and having to go with a more complicated solution. So these kinds of things are usually the things that come into question. But other than that, I would say what changed is as more and more technologies and I guess platforms gets introduced, it feels like the choice becomes what's the cool new thing and what are you familiar with, rather than often, because I think it's pretty impressive how a lot of these things are very they're very flexible, they're very versatile. Like all of these things pretty much can do the same thing if you're good enough at doing so. So if it's not a constraint within pricing or things that you've already been using, then a lot of the like the choice of which platform you're using ends up becoming which you're familiar with or which the system allows. And then other than that, I would say the other changing thing in the industry, I would say the biggest thing would actually just be an LLM choice. I think it's not directly relevant, I would say here, but I've been talking a lot with tech leaders and just AI directors and stuff for other companies when I'm networking or just talking with people. And it's pretty cool to see how in the past year, people have been telling me about how they've changed from this to that. So, oh, we started with Copilot and then we changed to GPT. And now actually everybody's on Claude. And suddenly boom, boom, and oh, everybody's trying out Cowork. Everybody's trying out Claude Code. It's these changes within even the personal day-to-day use cases that are very clear, I would say.
What would you say? Because you speak to a lot of people who want automations, they want AI, whether they're technical, whether they're not. What do you think the biggest mistakes are that people are making? So you've got, like, say, a small, medium-sized business owner. They're trying to automate stuff, trying to integrate AI into their business. A lot of the business owners I speak with, they say, I want AI in every single part of my business. What mistakes are they making?
Generally speaking, it's it's actually it's generally like an obvious answer and something that's, I would say, it's already often discussed, but it still happens. And the thing is, it's basically adding AI on top of a process where you don't actually need AI. I think that's one huge like mistake that some people do, because the thing is, like, especially, we're in Sydney and everything, like service cost is expensive, AI tokens and everything. Oh, maybe that's not a huge thing if you're not a big company, but if you're adding AI on top of a process that you don't need, oftentimes that becomes like a additional cost or additional, let's say, training thing where where even your own employees have to kind of learn it. It's like maybe adding a fancy AI feature to your chatbot, whereas your chatbot don't actually need that, and you're just making a very hyper advanced chatbot when most of your clients are word of mouth. Or it's things where you're trying to go for the sake of being AI. I think there's this whole feeling like, oh, if we're not AI, we're left behind. But if you're using AI in such a way where you're being wasteful or you're adding it on top of something, it's a lot of people are still learning the information. If you're overloading, let's say, employees, or you're just adding complexity to your system, it's usually very wasteful. It's usually unnecessary. It takes up so much time, and it takes up so much money. And so that's usually the most common thing that I see that often gets yeah, just the very regular like mistakes people have been doing. But I think more people are being aware of it. It's just, again, it's an AI hype. Everybody, it's like, I want to say that my business is AI focused, but it's like, yeah, for sure. And you have to be up to date with AI, but it doesn't mean every single thing every step of the way you have to put in an AI process. It's unnecessary and unproductive. In fact, you're adding more time, rather than saving it. So I think that's something that I see, at least. Well, other than that, I'm not sure exactly about any crazy flaws. Other than maybe, just misuse of AI. Maybe if somebody just puts up a whole database into the AI and something and just like breaks regulation. But
Because yeah, what it seems like to me is that most people I speak with, they're asking the kind of the wrong question. They're like, how do you put AI into everything? And then they go, I could put it here, 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 and they just throw AI at their business. But the people who are doing it really well, they're just thinking, okay, what is the actual problem I want to solve, or what is the thing I want to specifically achieve in the business? And then how do we solve that? And how do we architecture that? Like, what does that look like? Okay, and does it need AI?
a lot of people treat AI like it is impressive, and people feel like it's hyper impressive. It's insane. It's amazing, and it's productive. But because of that, you sort of like forget that this tool is usually most used for like not low level, but it's like the less impressive stuff. It's like when you're using it for the less impressive stuff, oftentimes like making it automate certain things, or making it do things that, let's say, the work where you're getting stuck at, or your redundant stuff. That's usually where AI often makes the most impact, rather than thinking about using an AI to run an entire business and replace an entire team. Like, if you have a very like AI is very impressive, but oftentimes because it's very impressive, we forget to like you kind of it's very quite easy to sort of like forget to use it for the small things. You're kind of just focusing on the big things to use it for, and all the impressive stuff. And with that, that's why it becomes like, oh, there's this cool new tool. Should we buy it? Should we buy it? Rather than, of course, like as you said, it's like, where are we getting stuck? What problem are we trying to solve? Or like, what are the small things that we can, I guess, optimize with AI, rather than, because I think there's a lot of hype into it. There's a lot of FOMO maybe. And so because of that, it feels like, oh, we should get this, we should get that, and be up to date. But yeah, it's often not that complicated.
I'm really curious to know though, because you've done quite a few projects now across a range of different clients. What are some of the solutions or types of projects that just keep coming up?
And well, one of them is for sure. It's I think it's no surprise, but the solutions with, let's say, customer service. I'll say customer service solutions and these kinds of things in most businesses. This is where oftentimes a lot of the AI help gets requested. Of course, it's different businesses, it's different use cases, but things like, a simple chatbot, or maybe a simple like automated ticketing system, or I think the more impressive stuff, at least especially now that I'm working with NiCE, it's a lot of voice bots. It's like voice bots calling, or customer support, and like natural voice kind of thing, multi-language voice things, or even just more advanced chatbots that allow users to do a little bit more by prompting things within the chatbot, rather than browsing the site and stuff. And so that's one thing that often comes back again and again, because oftentimes it's like what I said before. It's like we feel like we want to use AI for crazy advanced stuff, but just the fundamentals, like having a really good chatbot system, or maybe a voice call system, just like these customer service bots that help with these processes, making it so that it's running 24/7, for example. Make sure it's you're dealing with any customer with any load, rather than having to hire like more and more people, or outsourcing. And then that's one very common one. I think the other one comes back to typical redundant automation tasks, and this is, I would say, the other like hyper the very, very, very like common and very, very frequent request oftentimes when it comes to project. It's I see that most companies, again, it's like the small things that you really need that AI can help are things like, automating redundant tasks. Again, it's like the example I use, like moving from Excel to your CRM into your, whatever your invoicing system. Like that's something that somebody would spend, let's say, 3 hours, 4 hours if you have hundreds of invoices every single day or requests. And maybe it's like a supply chain thing. Maybe it's, let's say, making sure like someone would normally have to note down and always verify, let's say, pricing within their system, and then let's say what they're actually getting charged for their I guess whatever goods or the supply that they need for day to day. It's like all of these things are small things that end up becoming projects. And I think it's pretty funny to see that all of these projects are usually what ends up becoming long running. It always comes back. It's like, so maybe you consult with somebody and they're like, okay, like I hear about AI. I feel like AI can do this with my business, do this, do this, do this. But the eventual project you end up with, it's a small not small, it's like a lower level automation where it deals with, things moving data across platforms, or summarizing something specific along the process, or sending an email, or, verifying things across a schedule, and all of these automation tasks. I've done so much of these things. I feel like it's actually like 80% of it. In fact, I'll say, okay,
Well, 80% is the low level automation stuff.
like just automation, like as in like in if you're comparing, let's say, the automation stuff compared to, let's say, the big cool like AI projects, it's like 80% is simple automation, and 20%, it's the small companies that are actually creating AI products that they want to, sort of, maybe they want some kind of like cool computer vision thingy, and sure, it's like a tiny thing, but that's very rare. And most businesses, especially with that, you've already been running for 10 years. It's not like you're now creating an AI product. It's oftentimes the AI gets used within the business and helps a lot, and that's 80% of the projects that I do. It's automation, automation, automation. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because like we kind of started this chat talking about how people have these like big goals of putting AI into everything, and they have these they get really excited about it, and then they get kind of confused and stuck. They're like, oh, but should I do this, should I do this? And they end up wasting money and wasting time on all these projects that don't really matter, but the things that actually are adding value. And based on what you're saying and also what I'm seeing, it's like the little things that are mundane tasks, basic tasks that people are doing manually, and you're just giving an automate, like basically turning that into code, or turning it into code plus like a little bit of API calls to an LLM somewhere.
for sure, yeah. And I think, if I guess anyone listening is sort of like an AI developer and stuff, or somebody new, you'd be quite surprised that that's going to be a lot of the job. It's not cool LLM prompting and all the time. Sometimes it's creating system to automate certain things. It's a huge chunk of the role, which is quite surprising. I would say it's actually one of the surprises I had, because you go into the AI role, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to create impressive AI. I'm going to be like, you're thinking Sam Altman, you're thinking Dario Amodei, you're thinking like big crazy stuff. But a lot of the things that that have to be done are small mundane things.
Yeah, awesome. Another question I really wanted to ask you, because this comes up all the time, especially with just like small to medium sized business owners, because they're the people I mostly talk to, less the big enterprises. They are often stuck into an ecosystem. Like they're stuck in Microsoft, one of these ecosystems, and they're like, should we keep doing this? Should we use Copilot? Should we use Power Automate? Or whatever is the tool that they've got at their disposal. But then when you look at the trends, like you were saying earlier, people are going into Claude Codes and they're talking about GLM 5.2 and all these things. And they're like, should we kind of break out of our ecosystem and just use the latest thing that seems to be adding the most value? I was talking to a real estate director the other day, and they're fully into Microsoft. But he was saying, should we just get Claude Cowork, like the enterprise subscriptions for everyone, and just start using that instead? That's a kind of I guess a big tension point for a lot of businesses. Do you have any views on that?
Well, okay, the thing is, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of I don't know what the right word for it, but there's probably gonna be a lot of politics when it comes to choosing specific platforms, especially if it's been a native solution for a very long time. And of course there's gonna be friction and difficulty moving across platforms. But my view is that it's very important now that with how fast AI is moving, with how fast everything is changing, is that you're very flexible and open to change. I think if you're not, that's where most people often well, not necessarily you get left behind, but that's where you're maybe losing out on certain things that you could be improving in. I think I see a lot of the more up and coming, let's say, medium firms and stuff that I end up talking with a lot. It's like a lot of these guys, and they're creating solutions, they're growing really quickly, and they're advancing their products, they're sort of very productive. It's like small teams that are doing crazy things. And the best things, I think, what makes them very, very, very good at what they do is the fact that they're also very flexible. It's people that I talk to, they're like, yeah, because I always ask this question. For example, I was like, like I know now Claude is a whole new thing and stuff. Maybe you're on AWS or whatever. It's like, what are you gonna do if something else comes up? And they're like, oh, we're just gonna move. And like, oh wow, okay, oh, it's just like that. And they're like, yeah, I mean, like if it's gonna do better, and maybe if it's cheaper, or if it's just gonna provide something that I don't get, then I'm gonna move. It's like there's no reason for me to say. And I think that sort of mindset is, of course, it's not gonna be that simple. It's not that easy. But having an openness to sort of this kind of change, and accepting new technology should be, I guess, quite a huge thing in your, I guess, your forward thinking, especially as a business, because a lot of these things are growing so quickly. It's growing so much quicker than anybody can keep up, and you have to be flexible, I would say. With AI, like even I myself, like I'm learning everything daily, and I have to keep up to date and everything, and it's quite crazy how things are changing. And I myself, I've changed, like even things I've been using day to day. It's like I've changed a couple of times. It's like, yeah, like usually it's like one simple change. It's like just moving from ChatGPT to Claude. But of course, it was kind of annoying to move at the start. But you move and you're like, damn, like I kind of wish I moved earlier. It's a kind of thing. And yeah, I think being open to that change is quite important, I'd say. But of course, there's a lot of, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of politics. There's going to be a lot of like difficulty involved around the whole change process and stuff, because certain things, maybe they have deals with a specific partner, partner from Microsoft and stuff like those. I find that that's quite common. So that's often a friction point. And I guess bringing back, it's like I've actually had one, just as a small, I've had one project where I literally had to not necessarily downgrade, but I had to stick with a lower performing final result because I couldn't use specific AI models.
Was it Copilot?
No, it was okay. So basically, because I had to use Microsoft related, and it's just very like, yeah, I guess it wasn't Copilot, but it was GPT that was on Azure. And so it's basically,
Yeah.
I had to use models that are provided within their specific framework that they didn't. Oh, because at the time, this was the time when Gemini was pretty cool, and I was like, let's use Gemini. It's like it's cheaper and blah blah blah, and we could use this. And I've even tested with Gemini, and the results are better. They said that the results are better, but literally the only reason they didn't end up using Gemini is because, oh, we're like Microsoft native, so we have to use this model. And so I ended up having, okay, I guess we're downgrading the system a little bit to adhere to whatever thing you need to do. And for sure, maybe it makes sense for certain use cases, but that's sort of limiting yourself to what you can kind of, I guess, go for. And so yeah, I guess it's quite relevant to.
Yeah, it's such a big friction point, and especially like for some reason for me, it's just always Microsoft. Like people are in Microsoft and they want non-Microsoft stuff. For example, when it comes to like databases, they'd rather use something like Superbase, but their company just so their policies just won't let them use it. Anyway, I'd be curious to get your take on this. Do you think we're heading to a place where organizations are going to be custom building almost all the solutions that they use, using like say custom code on their own, choosing where they store their data, where they're hosting everything? Then they're going to be model agnostic, so they just basically plug in if Opus is the best, or Metis is the best, or GLM5 is the best. I don't know how it's going to look. I just feel like that's where it's going.
Basically, that's the conversation of is SaaS dead? Is SaaS dead? Is like software gonna be dead? And I feel like it's a very difficult question in the sense that the way I would phrase it is, my gut tells me that that's where we're heading towards, but the sort of like realistic part of me feels like, are we gonna even get there? It's a sort of like, I feel like we're heading towards that, but I don't know if we're gonna get there anytime soon, maybe, or even if we do get there, are people actually gonna use it? So it's like, I think as as I guess people say, AGI is coming, as Claude code gets better and better, you're going to end up being able to create everything yourself. Let's say the company needs a project management software. Let's just create our own project management software. Like, why use Jira? Why use this? Why use that? Why use like any of the software? Let's just use our own. with our own specific policies and even our own like framework and our flows. And from there, we'll just, yeah, because it's going to be cheaper to maintain, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. And the thing is, I do think we're heading there, but I'm not sure if companies are willing, I would say. I think smaller companies are already doing it because I know that I've had projects where I've had to recreate specific tiny systems for companies where they don't end up having to, pay a SaaS, for example, just for simple API calls. Because there's a lot of SaaS out there that are actually relatively simple, and they're generally dying with the sort of like dominance currently of Claude code, or all of these coding models where you're able to create everything. It's like even maybe website creating services get even more. It's like, well, I mean, everybody can make a website with just a few texts in, with just a few prompts in Claude. I think we're getting there for sure. But when it comes to the massive software, for example, like cloud ecosystems, or maybe emailing services, or even invoicing, all things that have very complicated things that go beyond simple software things. I think that those things are going to stay. I definitely think those things are going to stay for a while. Invoicing things, maybe things that are dealing with, let's say, pay, or maybe things that deal with sensitive data. Maybe you need specific organizations to handle it. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure. I think we're heading towards a direction that's my gut says again, it's we're heading there, but it's going to be a crazy change if it does happen. And that would if I think it's just the difficult part of it. It's a claim that essentially says that things are gonna die. Things are gonna die. The whole ecosystem is changing, and a couple of businesses are gonna go out of business. It's like a lot of stuff are gonna die if this happens, and that's kind of hard to say, at least for now. But in the long run, I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen.
Yeah. So what I've been doing recently, because I've been doing the AI engineer placements for a little while, full-time placements, but then I had a lot of small to medium-sized businesses tell me, Mackenzie, like I want AI in my business. I'm not technical. I don't know really how it works. I don't even know what I can do with it. I don't even know what tools to use. And I don't want someone full-time because it's not clear to me what that roadmap kind of looks like. So they're like, oh, well, can you give me someone part-time? Can you give me someone for a day a week, 2 days a week? And it's flexible. And so I just started doing that recently. I put an engineer in a manufacturer in Sydney, and they can kind of scale up and down how many hours that they use them. And actually, funny thing, the first project that he's working on, nothing to do with AI, is literally just timed scripts running basically to forecast inventory.
Yep.
That's literally it. So it's like pretty much free to he's going to use Claude code to build it up. Anyway, the point is, I think my hypothesis at the moment is a lot of businesses need AI. Almost all the small to medium-sized businesses I speak to in Australia aren't using it at all. Like their staff just uses ChatGPT, one-off prompts where they have to give context fresh every single time, like inconsistent outputs. They're just randomly using it. A very small percentage are actually using automations and more intelligent solutions. Most people aren't really using it. How do we help those companies implement AI properly? My hypothesis is we get people like yourself, people who have done like a computer science degree, software engineering degree. They're kind of AI native. They've almost grown up with it from like, their teenage years. And we just put them straight inside those businesses and let them kind of play. That's my hypothesis. I know there are AI consulting companies that also are a solution. What do you think the solution is? How do we help all these businesses implement the right solutions using AI, using automation?
I think you actually got it spot on. I feel there's been a growing, well, not industry, but there's been a growing sort of like business type, which is essentially these businesses that they give, I guess, AI consultants, but I think they call it AI, like forwards deployment engineer and stuff like that. And I think that's going to be the future for a lot of it, because I know it's going to be costly to, let's say, just hire one guy full time, and there's a lot of risk involved. But basically, the way that you're placing it, I think that's a huge. I do feel like that's a huge part of it, and I think that's one of the ways where businesses start to get used to AI. Then they start to be able to talk, let's say, just as a high level non-technical business owner. You're saying like, I need this. Like, I feel like this has been a difficult thing, and then the sort of guy who works with AI, he's on Claude like for 4 hours at least a day and something, and it's just like he's going to be able to help that sort of business get used to AI, or maybe at least create enough MVPs and just keep churning out results, even if it don't end up getting used. But this sort of like gets the ball going in the sort of like AI direction of, okay, let's build and try, doesn't work, build next thing, build next thing. And I think that's sort of like built mindset with especially placing these, I guess, even junior engineers, because I think with AI, a lot of junior engineers get empowered in a sense to create really impressive MVPs. And so I feel like you've got it spot on pretty much. And I think that's the main reason why a lot of these businesses are getting massive. I mean, you have bigger scale companies like Palantir, for example, doing that for massive enterprises. I think a lot of startups are doing it nowadays, especially startups that are being run by even, let's say, or by some kind of director, but he's not particularly technical. And so he'd get like a couple of these forward deployments engineer on a part-time basis, create his product, and he goes on from there. And I do think that that's the future. So yeah, I feel like you've got it spot on, honestly. And what you're doing is pretty much what I would probably do as well. And what I would probably
Yeah.
advise smaller business owners say. When I think that's also two birds, one stone. It also gives a lot of in a sense, a lot of experience, I would say, quite a bit of experience for the AI engineers as well. And I think empowering more juniors and people coming to the field, especially with their AI native mindset, you're gonna end up breeding a whole ecosystem of a bunch of people with very solutions focused, AI forwards kind of thinking, and that's what I think.